Hi, my name is Eric Notke, and this is video log 1, and I have chosen for my technology computer voting. Um, Voting, of course, has been around forever and in many different forms, many different ways. It started off something as simple as a bag of stones, one of which is a different color, and the person who draws a different colored stone is the person who's chosen. That's a very old, very simple way to do it. Of course, paper ballots have been used and are still used for voting to this day. The advent of computer voting has happened in the past 25 or so years. Starting off slowly, it's getting more and more popular. The need arose, I think, socially to try and control some of the human error that can happen when you're trying to count votes. I think that certainly the presidential election of 2000 with the hanging Chad debacle in Florida was a big impetus to get some other means of voting so that we can avoid that happening again. The other problem with that, of course, is that computers, as we've seen recently with the hack on the East Coast, are very prone to being tampered with, and it's very hard to put up safeguards. The technology of electronic voting seems to, and the implementation of it seems to have gone faster than safeguards put in place on whether or not people are hacking into the system. The fact that election rules go by state, I think, is also a problem. There's a lot of argument about keeping that particular power to the states and not making it a federal law. I tend to think that if we're going to have computer voting, which I think is a good idea, there should be set rules around it, and I think that all the states should follow those rules so that we know exactly what we're doing. I think that should be true, actually, of paper ballots or any other ballots that we're using. I think that the voting system should be regulated from one source, from one nonpartisan source, and that would certainly, I think, help a bunch. There's an article in Wired magazine. Brian Barrett writes on August the 2nd about how simple it is to hack into voting machines and how difficult it is to tell that it's even happened until well after the fact. And he advocates for a paper trail to go along with the computer voting. There is a website called the Encyclopedia of American Politics. It's ballotpedia.org that tracks what the states are using as far as computerized or paper or what ballots they're using or the combination thereof. What is interesting about that is certainly by far paper ballots are used more than anything else. The second most common is computer ballots with a paper ballot backup. So you actually do fill out a paper form and it gets counted electronically, but there is a paper trail that you can make. The third most popular, and it's only used in 7 states, but the third most popular is computer voting without any kind of paper backup. What's interesting about that is there are 7 states that do that. Out of those 7, 4 are swing states or potential swing states. Pennsylvania, Virginia, Florida, and Texas. While Texas not so much in the past few years, it has been a swing state in the past and looks as if it could end up being a swing state in the future. So out of the 7 states that are using just computer voting, 4 of them are very, very hotly contested swing states in every election in the 20th century, really, certainly in the latter half of the 20th century. So the fact that there's no backup in those states and we're just dealing with computers, I think leads to a climate socially of, depending on, of course, which way the election goes, it opens us up to allegations of voter fraud, vote tampering, and as hotly divided as we are between the two camps, whether we want to call it conservative and liberal or Republicans and Democrats, any kind of question, especially in states such as Florida or Virginia, are going to cause us to have what we have seen, which is not so civil discourse on whether or not people are tampering, and accusations that there is tampering going on in those states and other states. Certainly, this election cycle by one of the candidates for one of the major parties. There's no evidence to that fact, but the fact that we do have, if you count computer voting with or without a paper trail, just under half the country using computerized voting, it's very hard to dismiss calls of voter fraud when it is incredibly easy to get into these machines, and incredibly hard to keep them safe or find any common ground, because, as I said, the states are the ones that are keeping this in line, and not necessarily one federal body. So I think that having the technology is a good idea. I think the technology needs a backup. Short of that, I think that the technology needs to be centralized, federalized, controlled by a bipartisan or nonpartisan group. All the rules need to be the same, and then I think we can go. I think that the majority of the people will accept the results that come from computer voting. There will always be, I think, fringes that won't accept it, but I think that if there is one centralized, regulated computer voting system, the majority of the American people will recognize those votes as legitimate. Okay, thank you.